Welcome, welcome. She can't see anything. Make yourselves at home. Sonia, my love, you're up late. Can I get you anything?
No thank you, Tunde. I have everything I need.
The flight from Milan landed at 11:47 p.m. Sonia did not call ahead. She never did. In 22 years of building Tessera fabrics from a single Balagoon market stall into one of West Africa's most respected luxury textile houses, she had learned that the truest picture of anything was the one nobody prepared for. The driver, Emmanuel, met her at arrivals with the kind of rigid posture that meant he had been waiting a long time and was pretending he hadn't. She noticed he would not meet her eyes. She filed it away. The drive from Mutala Mohammed to their home in Banana Island took 34 minutes. The house was lit up when they arrived. Living room, upper corridor, the master bedroom. Tunde had told her on the phone he was exhausted, sleeping early. Yet every light in the house burned like a celebration. She stood in the foyer for a moment. The air conditioner was running at full blast, the way Tunde liked it when he had company. Her company, not his. She went upstairs alone. The master bedroom smelt of something floral and foreign. Not her own perfume. She would know her own perfume. Shalimar, same bottle for 15 years. This was something younger, something that didn't cost enough. She stood in the doorway and took it in. The bed remade too tightly, the pillows symmetrical in a way Stella never arranged them, the ensuite door closed when it was always left open. She did not investigate further. She went to the guest room, set her carry-on at the foot of the bed, and slept like a woman who had made a decision. In the morning, Tunde came downstairs in his robe, visibly startled to find her already at the breakfast table.
Sonia! I didn't hear you come in. Why didn't you wake me?
You said you were exhausted. I didn't want to disturb you.
He kissed her cheek. His cologne was fresh. He had already showered at 7 in the morning before she had even called his name.
How was Milan? The Guarani people, did they sign?
They signed.
That's my wife, strongest woman in Lagos.
He squeezed her shoulder and reached past her for the bread, his hands steady, unhurried, the hands of a man with nothing to hide. That was exactly the tell. Guilty men who had been doing something long enough stopped being nervous about it. Comfort was more dangerous than guilt. She ate her toast and said nothing else. That afternoon, while Tunde was at what he called a golf meeting, Sonia asked Stella to come to the sitting room. Stella was 51, had been with them 9 years, and carried the particular stillness of a woman who knew too much and had decided for the sake of her salary and her sanity to know nothing at all. She sat across from Sonia with her hands folded, eyes respectful and carefully empty.
The master bedroom. When did it get cleaned last? Yesterday morning, ma. And the ensuite, the towels? I changed them myself, ma. Before or after the guest left.
Stella's face held, but her folded hands pressed together just slightly, knuckle against knuckle, and that was enough.
Don't lie to me. I'm not asking you to report your ogre. I'm asking you what kind of house I'm coming home to. It's not one person, ma. Different people. While you travel, I clean. I don't talk. That has been my way. Does she have a key? Yes, ma. You can go. And Stella, not a word of this conversation. Not to the other staff. Not to anyone. Yes, ma.
She spent the rest of the afternoon in her study. Not working, just sitting with the lagoon view and the information, letting it settle into its proper shape. It was not grief she was feeling. She had built grief-proof walls inside herself years ago. Tessera required it. Grief was for people who are surprised. What she felt was something cleaner and colder. The feeling that arrives when you've suspected embezzlement for months and the auditor finally lays the numbers in front of you. Not shock. Confirmation. And after confirmation, only one question remained. What now? Confrontation was what Tunde would expect. A scene, tears, accusations, thrown things, lawyers called in passion. Tunde had spent 22 years learning the shape of Sonia's anger. He knew how to survive it. He had survived it before. Smaller things, small enough that she had chosen the marriage over the evidence. This time, she would give him nothing he recognized. She opened her laptop and booked a flight to Accra for the following Tuesday. Then she picked up her phone and called Dr. Emeka Chukwuka, her personal physician of 12 years, a quiet, precise man who had seen her through a hypertension scare, a miscarriage she had never told Tunde about, and a cancer screening she still did not like to think about.
Emeka, I need something from you, and it stays between us.
You're worrying me.
Don't be worried. I need to understand the sudden tweaks, the symptomatia, what is special.
The symptoms, the behavior, what a specialist would expect to observe. I need to be able to perform it convincingly. Sonia, what is this for?
I'm going to come home from Accra blind, and I need it to be believable enough that my husband doesn't question it for a single second.
And what is the effect? I don't know leave yet.
Whatever it is,
I need to see it with my own eyes before I decide what to do with it. I'll send you everything tonight. Sonia, be careful. I'm always careful, Emeka. That's why I'm still standing. She ended the call and sat back. Outside, the lagoon lay flat and dark and indifferent, the way Lagos always looked at dusk, like it had seen everything before and was not moved. She had 1 week to become a woman who could not see. 1 week to study the walk, the flinch, the slow reaching hand, the turned ear. 1 week to build a mask so perfect that the man who had shared her bed for 2 decades would look into her face and see nothing looking back. She had negotiated harder things across worse tables. Sonia came home from Accra on a Thursday afternoon. Emmanuel brought the car to the arrival's curb and watched her madam descend from the airport sliding doors slowly, one hand gripping a walking stick she had not left with. Dark glasses swallowed the top half of her face. A young woman he didn't recognize held her elbow and guided her toward the car with the careful attention of someone who had been paid to do it. He stood very still. Then he opened the rear door without a word. In the car, Sonia said nothing. She stared ahead through the dark lenses at a world she was pretending not to see. And Emmanuel, loyal, frightened Emmanuel, drove her home in total silence, his eyes moving to the rearview mirror every few minutes, as if reassuring himself that she was still there. Tunde met her in the foyer. He had dressed, pressed agbada, the good slippers, cologne applied with the enthusiasm of a man preparing for an audience. Word had reached him before the car did, because word always moved faster than cars in a house full of staff.
Sonia, my God. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you wait until you were coming home? I would have flown out. I would have been
I
there.
don't want to worry you.
Worry me, you are my wife. This is my business to worry.
He held her. Over his shoulder, Sonia's eyes, open, clear, reading everything behind the dark lenses, swept the foyer. Fresh flowers on the console table, the good throw pillows arranged on the sofa in the sitting room, and Stella standing near the kitchen entrance with her hands clasped, watching the performance with the face of a woman watching a dangerous animal. Sonia leaned into Tunde's chest and let him believe he was holding a broken woman. The first week, he was magnificent. He cancelled 2 golf meetings and 1 trip to Port Harcourt. He sat beside her at dinner and cut her meat. He told the story of her sudden illness to every relative and family friend who called, his voice rich with worry and devotion. And when Pastor Adewale visited with a delegation to pray over her, Tunde wept, actual tears, neat and well-timed, and the pastor gripped his shoulder and said he was a rare husband. Sonia sat through the prayers with her hands folded in her lap and her face arranged into something soft and frightened. And she thought, he has always been a better performer than I gave him credit for. The relatives brought pepper soup and Bibles. The neighbors sent flowers. Tunde's mother called every day from Ibadan to pray on the phone, and Tunde held the speaker to Sonia's ear with both hands as though it were a sacred object. She let it happen. She was watching the seams. The seams appeared on day 11. She heard the phone call at 1 a.m. Tunde had gone downstairs thinking she was asleep. She was never asleep. She had trained herself in Accra to sleep in 30-minute intervals, lightly, the way animals in open terrain sleep. She heard his voice below, low and liquid, and she heard laughter that was not his. 3 days later, a car idled outside the gate for 40 minutes before Emmanuel was instructed to let it in. Sonia sat by the upstairs window she had positioned her reading chair beside and listened to heels cross the marble foyer below. Confident heels, heels that knew the floor plan. She heard Tunde say, "She's resting, she won't come down." And she heard a woman's laugh, short, unbothered, and music from the sitting room below. By the third week, Evie had stopped pretending. She moved through the house with the ease of someone who had been waiting for permission and had decided she no longer needed it. She was in her late 20s, built like an exclamation point, and wore confidence the way some women wore perfume, applied heavily and refreshed throughout the day. She sat at Sonia's dining table in Sonia's ivory silk kaftan, the one she had bought in Marrakesh 3 years ago and wore only for important evenings, and ate jollof rice while Tunde poured her wine. Sonia sat at the far end of the table in her dark glasses, moving her fork slowly, pretending to find the edge of her plate by touch.
She can't tell. Babe, relax.
Keep your voice down.
For what? She's blind, not deaf. And even if she hears me, what is she going to do?
She said it looking directly at Sonia, testing. When Sonia's face remained blank and searching, turned slightly in the wrong direction as she had practiced, Evie smiled. See? Nothing. Sonia took a slow sip of water. Below the table, her free hand was pressed flat against her thigh, fingers spread, the way she steadied herself before signing large contracts. The humiliations escalated with Evie's confidence. Sonia's wardrobe was raided openly. She heard the hangers, heard the comments. One evening, she heard Evie's voice drifting from the master bedroom.
This woman has taste, Sha, but she's too old for half of this. This one I'm keeping.
This one I'm keeping. Mornings, Evie walked past Sonia in the hallway and said nothing, not a greeting, not an acknowledgement, the erasure of someone who had been reclassified as furniture. Once, Evie sat beside her on the veranda and spoke on the phone about her for 11 minutes, her finances, her prognosis, her likely lifespan, while Sonia sat perfectly still and listened to every word. But it was one evening in the sitting room that something shifted permanently. Tunde had gone to take a call. Evie was alone with Sonia, flipping through channels on the television with Sonia's remote in her hand, her feet tucked under her on Sonia's sofa. And then she spoke, not to anyone, almost to herself.
You built all of this. Imagine. And now you can't even see it. Life is not fair to some people.
Sonia turned her face toward the window as though following a sound. Through the dark lenses, her eyes were dry and absolutely clear. She was keeping a list. Every item of clothing taken, every conversation overheard, every timestamp, every name, every humiliation carefully catalogued in the notebook she kept in the inner pocket of her dressing gown and updated every night after Tunde slept. She had built Tessera from nothing by keeping meticulous records. She would dismantle this the same way. It was on a Tuesday night, week 5, that the game changed. She heard them from the corridor. She had come downstairs for water, moving in careful, practiced blindness, when Evie's wish reached her from the sitting room, low and deliberate, stripped of its usual performance.
Tunde, how long do you want to do this?
What do you mean?
I mean this, her here, in this house, between us and everything.
She's my wife, Evie.
She's a burden. A blind woman managing a business empire. How long before the board moves her out? Before the money starts shifting, you need to be positioned, Tunde, properly. And you can't do that properly while she's still sitting at the head of the table. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm saying, think about it. Think about what your life looks like if things just moved faster.
Faster? What do you mean?
I'm saying don't be afraid.
I'll think about it.
Sonia walked back upstairs, step by careful step, and sat on the edge of the guest bed in the dark. Then she opened her notebook and wrote one line beneath the evening's other entries. They are talking about my death. She closed it. She thought of Tessera. She thought of what she had survived to build it. Then she picked up her phone and sent a single message to Dr. Chukwuemeka. Stage 2 begins tomorrow. The dinner invitation surprised Tunde. Sonia announced it at breakfast, calmly, her dark glasses on, her hands wrapped around her tea mug, her face aimed just slightly left of where he was sitting.
I want to have people over. Saturday evening. Close friends, a few family members. I've asked Stella to begin perhaps.
Sonia, are you sure you don't have to?
I've been inside this house for I'm blind dead.
Of course, whatever you want.
What she did not tell him was that she had also contacted her lawyer, her head of security at Tessera, and a private forensic accountant she had used twice before when suppliers tried to swindle her. She had spent the last 72 hours building two things simultaneously, a dinner party and a case file. The dinner was the deadline. Whatever she needed, she would have it by Saturday. Wednesday passed quietly. Evie did not come that day. She came on Tuesdays and Thursdays mostly, with occasional Sundays when Tunde grew careless. Sonia had mapped the schedule the way she mapped shipping routes. Patterns, frequencies, deviations. She knew which car Evie drove, which gate she used, and how long she typically stayed. She spent Wednesday in her study with the door shut, on calls she took in a low, controlled voice. Her head of security, Dozie, had been with Tessera for 8 years. He was discreet in the way that expensive, loyal people are discreet, completely and without needing to be asked twice.
The internal cameras, the ones covering the dining room, sitting room, kitchen corridor, and master or best bedroom entrance. I need the last today's poll and set.
Consider it's done. Should I flag anything specific? Flag everything. I'll review it myself. Ma, are you safe? Not yet, but I will be. Thursday night, Ibie came. Sonia was already in position, upstairs, door slightly open, seated in the dark in her reading chair with a glass of water she had no intention of drinking. She had learnt in 5 weeks that the most useful place in the house was not the room you occupied, but the corridor that connected rooms. Sound traveled up the staircase cleanly. She had acoustically mapped her own home the way a person does when their ears become their only instrument. Tunde and Ibe ate dinner in the sitting room. She heard the clink of cutlery, the television underneath their conversation, laughter that came and went in waves. Normal, almost domestic, the performance of people who believed the audience had gone. Then past midnight, when the television went quiet, she heard Ibie's voice shift, shedding its warmth the way a coat comes off indoors.
I spoke to my cousin, the one who works at Lagos Island General.
For what?
I was asking questions about the medications they give.
About optic neuritis, about the medications they give. What happens when a patient with the condition takes the wrong thing, too much of something, or something that reacts badly?
I'm not talking about anything dramatic, nothing that looks like anything. There are things that present like a natural decline, like the body giving up on its own. Nobody asks questions when a sick person gets sicker.
You're not serious.
Tunde, that woman controls everything. The house, the accounts, the business, everything is in her name or passes through her, even the car you drive. How long do you want to live like a visitor in your own home?
How would it even...
Leave that to me. I just need you to not interfere. Saturday, the dinner, her food.
Sonia stopped counting. She sat in the dark with her hands flat on her thighs and her eyes wide open behind the glasses she still wore out of habit, even alone. The sitting room below had gone quiet again. A murmur, a laugh, Ibie's, brief and businesslike. Then the sound of the television returning. She did not move for a long time. This was the moment she had prepared for and had not prepared for. She had expected greed, expected humiliation, had even expected, somewhere in the cold, logical part of her mind that had run Tessera through recessions and hostile partners and an industry that did not easily welcome women. She had prepared for it, strategically, the way you prepare for a worst-case scenario in a business plan. You write the contingency, you hope you never need it. But hearing it spoken, hearing Tunde's voice ask, how would it even, and not finish the sentence. Hearing him fail to say no, she pressed her back against the chair and breathed. Then she picked up her phone and typed a message to Dozie. Saturday dinner. I need a full team on site, plain clothes, recording active from 5 p.m. Do not engage unless I send the word. His response came in under a minute. Understood. She typed a second message to her lawyer, Barrister Obiageli Musu, who had been her legal counsel since Tessera's incorporation. Obi, I need you available Saturday evening. I will send you a package before 6 p.m. Everything you need to move immediately after. Then she sat back and thought about Tunde. Not the Tunde downstairs, the other one, the one from 22 years ago that had shown up at her market stall on a rainy Tuesday, helped her cover her fabric rolls from the downpour without being asked, and stayed to help her restack them. That Tunde had something behind his eyes she had trusted completely. She had built a life on that trust, had worked harder than she might have worked alone perhaps, because she wanted to build something worthy of it. She allowed herself 60 seconds of that. Then she closed the door on it. Tunde was downstairs, had nothing to do with that man. That man was a story she had told herself 22 years. This one had sat in silence while a woman planned his wife's death and asked only, how would it even? 60 seconds, done. Friday morning, she called Dr. Chukwubuka.
What does potassium chloride do if it enters food? Or something with a similar profile, something that could be acquired and wouldn't immediately read as intentional.
Sonia, what has happened?
I need to know what I'm dealing with.
Not for any other reason.
How certain are you that this is the plan?
I heard it. Clearly, Saturday dinner.
You need to go to the police right now, tonight. This is not a business problem, Sonia.
The police will come after. First, I need what I need.
And if something goes wrong at the table?
Nothing will go wrong. I have been managing risk my entire life, Emeka. I know how to move a bowl.
Friday night, she spent in her study until 2 a.m. reviewing footage Doze had sent to her encrypted drive. Tunde and Ibie, across 30 days, in her house, at her table, in the corridor outside her bedroom door. She watched all of it. She did not fast forward once. By the time she closed the laptop, the case file was complete. Footage, recordings, financial irregularities Doze had flagged in the household accounts, withdrawals, transfers, a credit card Tunde had opened in a version of her business name without her knowledge. She had walked into this marriage with nothing but fabric rolls and discipline. She would walk out of it with everything. Stella pressed the good tablecloth the following morning, not knowing she was setting the stage for the last dinner this house would ever host. Saturday arrived the way important days always do, unremarkably, with ordinary light. Sonia was up before 5. She showered, applied her makeup with the precision of a woman who understood that appearance was its own form of armor, and dressed in the one thing she had kept locked in her wardrobe since returning from Accra, a deep burgundy Ankara evening dress, structured at the shoulder, fluid at the hem, the kind of thing a woman wears when she intends to be remembered. Then she put on the dark glasses and became blind again. By 6, the house smelled of pepper soup, of palm oil and crayfish, of the specific richness that only surfaces when Stella is cooking for an occasion she respects. 8 guests were expected. Tunde's elder brother Biodo and his wife, 2 couples from their social circle, Sonia's friend Chiamaka, and Pastor Adewale, whose presence Sonia had specifically requested, a witness with moral authority. She had thought of everything. Tunde moved through the evening's preparations with the careful energy of a man managing several realities at once. He checked on Sonia twice, guided her to her chair at the head of the table with both hands, and murmured that she looked beautiful. She thanked him softly. She felt his hands on her shoulders, steady, gentle, and thought, he decided. He had decided, and he was still holding her shoulders and telling her she looked beautiful.
Everyone is excited to see you. You don't have to stay long if you're tired.
I'm fine, Tunde. I want to be here.
That's my strong woman.
He kissed the top of her head and went to welcome Biodu at the door. Sonia reached under the table and pressed record on the small device she had taped to the underside 40 minutes earlier while the house was still empty. Chiamaka gripped her hands across the table and said,
Sonia, you look so well. We have been praying every day. I know. I feel them.
Pastor Adewale prayed over the table, a long, grateful prayer, the kind that fills a room and leaves it quieter after, Around her, I heard chairs settle, glasses lift, Stella moving from kitchen to table with the calm efficiency of a woman who had decided to do her job impeccably on this particular evening, as though she too understood something was ending. The food arrived in courses, pepper soup first, then rice, stew, fried plantain, the goat meat Tunde had specifically requested from the butcher in Surulere, and then the main soup, egusi, rich and dark, served in the deep ceramic bowls Sonia had bought from a potter in Abuja 4 years ago. Sonia heard the ladle, heard the bowl placed before her, and then, in the small gap between the conversation around her and the clink of Biodun's spoon, she heard Tunde rise slightly from his seat beside her. A small, controlled movement, the sound of something being uncapped and recapped in under 3 seconds. She did not turn her head. Then, slowly, with the unhurried movement of a woman feeling for her napkin, she moved her left hand to the base of her bowl, and she switched them. She lifted the spoon and began to eat. It took 11 minutes. She heard it before she saw it. A cough, shallow and confused, the sound a person makes when the body registers something wrong before the mind does. Then another. Then Tunde's chair scraping back. Tunde, what's wrong? The coughing deepened. A glass knocked over. Chiamaka's voice rose sharply. Oh God, somebody! Tunde was on his feet, gripping the table's edge, his face going the color of old ash. He looked directly at Sonia, still seated, dark glasses on, hands folded, and something moved across his face that was not just fear, something that understood. Sonia! Then his knees folded. Biodun caught him before he hit the floor. Pastor Adewale was praying already, loudly, hands raised. One of the women was screaming. Stella had appeared in the kitchen doorway, frozen. The room had become chaos. In the center of it, Sonia stood, not groping for support, not turning her head at sounds trying to locate them. She stood fully and clearly, the way she stood in boardrooms and on trading floors and in every room in which someone had underestimated her. She reached up and removed the dark glasses. Her eyes, clear, sharp, furious and dry, swept the room. The screaming stopped. Chiamaka's hand went to her mouth. Biodun, kneeling over Tunde, looked up and went completely still. Pastor Adewale's prayer died mid-sentence. Sonia looked at each of them in turn. Then she looked at Tunde, slumped against Biodun's arm, gasping, his eyes locked on her face with the expression of a man watching something he cannot explain. She spoke quietly enough that the room had to silence itself to hear her.
A blind woman still sees betrayal.
Then she picked up her phone and called for an ambulance. She stayed on the line with emergency services, giving the address clearly, describing the symptoms without panic because she was not panicking. She had known this moment was coming since Friday at 2 a.m. and she had prepared for every second of it. Dozie's team came through the front door 3 minutes later, 4 men in plain clothes who moved through the dining room with the quiet precision of people executing a plan. One went to Tunde, one positioned himself at the exit. 2 others she directed with a look toward the guest bathroom, where Ivy, who had arrived an hour before dinner, under the cover of a fabricated reason Tunde had arranged, had been waiting for a signal that would never come. The ambulance arrived in 9 minutes. Paramedics stabilized Tunde on the dining room floor, while Pastor Adewale sat in a chair against the wall and stared at Sonia with an expression she could not fully read. Chiamaka was crying quietly. Biodun had not moved from the floor. His wife held his arm with both hands. Sonia, how long? Long enough. She followed the stretcher to the door and watched them load her husband into the ambulance. He was conscious, barely, oxygen mask over his face, his eyes finding her in the doorway. She held his gaze evenly and said nothing. There was nothing left to say that the evening had not already said. The police arrived at 7 the following morning. She met them at the gate in a linen suit, her hair pinned, her eyes uncovered. She handed Barrister Nwosu the full case file at 6:45. Footage, recordings, financial documents, the forensic accountant's report on the fraudulent credit account, and a toxicology brief Dr. Chukwuemeka had prepared, identifying the compound in Tunde's soup, which Dozi's team had already swabbed and preserved. Tunde was discharged from hospital at 9 a.m. and arrested at 9:12, still in his hospital bracelet, in front of 2 journalists who had received an anonymous tip about a story worth arriving early for. Ivy was brought out in handcuffs 4 minutes later. The neighbors had gathered by then, pressed against the gate in clusters, silent and watching. Sonia stood on the front steps and watched the police vehicles pull away and did not perform composure. She simply had it, the way she had always had it, underneath everything they had put her through. Chiamaka appeared beside her, took her hand without a word. They stood together until the street was quiet again. In the weeks that followed, Sonia did not give interviews, she did not post, she did not perform her recovery for anyone's satisfaction. She went back to work. Tessa's next collection, woven in Lagos, finished in Accra, launched in Milan, was the most successful in the company's history. The lead fabric was a deep, structured burgundy. The press called it striking, architectural. The kind of thing that looked simple until you examined it closely and realized how much precision had gone into every thread. Sonia read the review in her study, alone with a cup of tea. She thought it was a reasonable description of the fabric and of herself. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you for staying with me. Do us well to hit the subscribe button so you never miss another beautiful tale like this. And right now, there's another lovely story waiting for you on your screen. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.